Welcome to Realm for fun and enlightening multi-dimensional interviews. Well, hello, Diana.
Hello, Karen.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just fine. Who do we have on the show today?
Well, we have elementals.
The elementals.
I just learned that word today.
The elementals.
But now, I had a question about that. We're going to have gnomes and fairies, but they're not all. There's more elementals than those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. So we're just having a subset of the elementals.
Right. The gnomes.
The gnomes and the fairies.
Okay. And the gnomes we have today are worldwide. The global gnomes.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there's a whole network of gnomes all around the world. And they're in contact with each other. And,
okay.
Yeah.
How do they communicate? iPhones?
They've got their own version of iPhone, which is sort of like telepathy.
Telepathy? So they're actually... Now, if they can communicate telepathically, are they considered more advanced communicators than we are?
They think so.
They think so.
Yeah.
Interesting.
See, but they can also communicate with us, too. And
right.
How do they do that?
Telepathically.
Right, exactly. So.
But when you say us, do you mean like you and me, or do you mean like anyone who wants to, or any...
Well, anyone who wants to. Okay. I mean, if you want to, presumably you'll find a way to do it.
Okay.
So
there's gnomes all over the world. Now, I grew up with this sort of northern Scandinavian gnome that looked a lot like Santa Claus, only little, with the pointy hats.
That's right.
Little rotund bellies and the rosy cheeks.
Yeah. So,
often trudging through snow.
Right, exactly. And, they were small and rotund just because they lived in, well, they still do, live in cold climates. And, but the ones that live in more temperate climates, they've got different body features and shapes and even skin color. Because they're saying that depending on what country and what culture they're in, they kind of like look more like the human peoples that are there. In countries where it's warmer, they're not going to be so rotund.
Right, okay.
And they may be skinnier, a little bit taller. And they're kind of like mini versions of the people of a particular country or region.
I think I can hear some gnomes ringing some bells with sleigh bells coming in the background.
That's the Ollie gnome.
That's the Ollie gnome.
Oh, you know what? They also have their own little animals, too.
Oh.
Gnome animals.
Gnome animals. All right. So little tiny reindeer, little tiny dogs, little tiny cats, what?
Whatever they want.
Ah, so we always pictured them like riding on the back of a mouse or something versus having teeny tiny little mice.
No, it's like, depending on what they want, right? Mm-hmm. And how able they are to actually sort of like manifest this for themselves. But they can have kind of like little farms complete with little horses, little donkeys, little cows, chickens, that they tend to.
Okay, but these, you're talking about kind of like the northern gnomes, or these could be...
Oh, they're
everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Okay, so like a Polynesian gnome, right? French Polynesian gnome.
Oh, well.
So do they have little canoes, and do they have little...
Well, first of all, they're not that rotund, right? Then, of course, they've got dark skin because they're in the sun all the time. And they don't wear layers of clothing. They're running around on the beach all the time with their little surfboards.
Do they wear pearl necklaces?
If they want to.
If they want to?
Yeah.
Black pearls from the black-lipped oysters. Interesting. All right.
They have harpoons, too.
Pardon me?
To fish.
Oh, they have little harpoons to fish? Do you fish amongst the coral reefs or something? stab those little ones? Those little colorful bluefish and...
Well, I mean, they have to live too.
All right, okay.
I mean,
they're not just eating piranha.
No.
They're eating little fish and...
I mean, yeah, they're
not vegetarians by any means.
No. Well, it just depends on what they want, they want for themselves. Right.
But generally, they take on the culture of the people.
Right.
So Indian gnomes will look a little bit like Indian people.
Right.
And what about gnomes in a place like not New Zealand, but Australia, where you have the native people, which are the Maori, and then you have all these inhabitants, just British inhabitants. Do the gnomes look like the British, or they look like the Maori?
Well, or
some other native group.
This is quite interesting because you will have both. Okay.
Oh, both.
Because there's Maori gnomes, the original indigenous populations, right? And then when colonizers came over, British or whoever else came over, they brought gnomes with them.
Oh, the gnomes, they brought them with, or the gnomes just came with them?
I guess they didn't know that they were taking them with, but they came with them.
Okay.
The more adventurous gnomes.
Okay.
They want to travel, see the world.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Experience life elsewhere.
So a lot of those gnomes invaded European gnomes invaded with us into the Americas.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Okay. And so there's native gnomes here.
There's native gnomes here. Yeah.
Now, did the native gnomes move into like little reservations, or did the gnomes travel with the native peoples to the reservations?
They did both. Those who wanted to travel with them, they went with them. Some of them stayed where they were originally. And because, you may think of like gnome-human relationships as being symbiotic, but they can actually exist apart from each other.
Right, okay, so...
And then there's also not intermarriage or whatever you want to call it, between the colonizing gnomes and then the indigenous gnomes.
Right, okay. They just intermingled.
Yeah.
They have the same issues with, superiority complexes and stuff like that.
No, funnily enough, they don't.
They don't.
No.
I wouldn't necessarily think they would, but...
Yeah, which is a credit to them.
Yeah. So I'm trying to imagine like a bunch of little Patamac gnomes running around Washington, D.C. from the Potomac, Patamac Indians, where the Potomac River is named after, or there's so many little tribes that were in this area that must have had like gnomes running around with them, and they might still be here.
They are still here.
All right. Now, do they get like pushed out by civilization? Too much cement? Or do they just move inside, become indoor gnomes, or how do they do that?
Well, again, it kind of like depends on what they want. In areas where, some of them have got their own kind of like habitations outside. Mm-hmm. So when it gets cold, they don't necessarily have to go live in human houses.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But so, if they want to, they can create their own complex living situations. In natural areas. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or they can live in urban areas too, like in densely populated cities.
So New York City, Mexico City, they all have their gnomes.
Yeah.
Paris, Parisian gnomes.
Yeah, exactly.
Buenos Aires.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Wow, this is all getting more interesting. So I just want to, because of the time of year, I want to turn to gnomes and holidays. I grew up with kind of a gnome-flavored Christmas.
Right.
It was our family.
Swedish.
Yeah, celebrated more of a Swedish Christmas, and there was little tuntas, or the little gnome-like Santas around, and there seemed to be like a little reverence a nod to the gnomes at Christmas time. And, that might go back to like paganism or something like that. But does each group of gnomes have holidays that they have adapted to or have carried forward? I mean, like for Christmas, what is our association with gnomes to Christmas?
Well, it's got something to do with, like the human-gnome relationship, and then also the time of year. It's not necessarily Christmas, meaning like, December 25th and, birth of Christ or whatever. And it's not, so it's more pagan in terms of, what do the pagans celebrate then? Was it winter solstice or whatever?
Yeah, winter solstice on the 23rd.
Okay. So, and what does that represent? That represents something important.
The end of the days getting shorter and the beginning of the days getting longer.
Okay. So anyway, that is an important period for gnomes, and everywhere, and traditionally they have kind of like celebrated that by leaving out gifts for humans that they interact with.
Oh, that's interesting. So the gift giving goes back to this pagan joy of celebrating the last of the shortening of the days and the beginning of the lengthening of the days.
Yeah.
And is that okay? So that's in their, they're aware that, I guess they're aware that doesn't matter as much nowadays to humans because we have light, artificial light, and we have heat, and we have, and we, get our food imported. We have very little tied to the seasons.
Right, which is why it turned into Christmas, right?
Well, I don't know if that was the only reason.
Well, no, right, but it's still, if you want something to celebrate, it's like, oh, well.
So the gnomes kind of giggle at us when we're changed the celebration to like.
Not really.
Okay.
They think of it as just like another excuse to party.
Oh, okay. and so gnomes.
The winter solstice was their original excuse to party.
Okay, at this time of year.
Right, and so it was party time, and part of that party time was so they were gift giving to humans. Mm-hmm. Well, they also gave gifts among themselves, but they decided that somehow this bond between gnomes and humans was something special, and they had to do something to show how special it was. Okay,
so for them it was a time to celebrate, but it was also a time to honor the relationship that they had with humans.
Right.
And that relationship is more of a helper relationship. They're there as helpers to humans. But there must be something that humans do for them too, even though we ignore them most of the time.
Yeah, I know. We do ignore them most of the time.
At least in modernity.
Right. Previously, it was like the gnomes could rely on humans for even though humans may not have known that they were doing this, right? But they would rely on humans for various things that they needed for their survival,
like food.
Or shelter, right? If they didn't want to build any kind of housing for themselves, if it got cold, they'd move into the human houses. And then food also, right?
So they actually relied on humans for food?
Yes.
Somehow.
Well,
but they don't now.
They do kind of still, yeah.
And is it like things like birdseed we put out? Or garbage? Or do they sneak around in the middle of the night and steal a piece of chicken? Or what? I don't know anybody that talks to gnomes besides you and me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you may think of gnomes as kind of like existing on air, but
breatharians.
Yeah, they don't really. They also need some kind of sustenance, which, I mean, if you're nice, you actually leave food out for them. Like you leave cookies out for cookies and milk out for Santa Claus.
Maybe that's where that whole thing came from, leaving the cookies out for the gnomes.
It's like people, they leave leftovers out. If something's cooling, they leave it out. They don't put it hot in the fridge.
And they wouldn't notice if a little tiny bite was gone.
People leave bread out.
It's just hard to think because it's like, I used to...
But they're not robbers. They're not thieves. Gnomes are not thieves.
I used to get up at night or in the morning and I'd find a bag of bread on the table with a little knot in the corner of it.
Really?
Yeah, and I had these cats that never ever went on the counter. One time I snuck up in the middle of the night and I saw one of my cats actually on the counter eating the bread through the bag. I was like, I said, no, I'm doing that.
You could have.
But they probably would have actually been a little more delicate than the cat was. So anyway, I didn't leave my bread out anymore. But never go on the counter. I actually sneaked on the counter at night when I wasn't watching. So I think, so there's got to be like holidays then they're celebrating all over the world. So do they have a common holiday that they really like more than any?
Gnome Day.
Gnome Day. Okay. And when is Gnome Day?
Okay, when is Gnome Day? It's in May sometime. May 12th.
May 12th is Gnome Day. And what is why May 12th? And is this a global day?
Well, whoever uses the, whatever calendar we have, what is it, Georgian calendar or whatever?
I don't know. It's something like that.
I mean, whoever uses the calendar that we use now is May 12th.
It's May 12th. So it could be a different date on
a different calendar.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why May 12th?
They just decided May is a good time. It's spring. Everything's growing again. Everybody's happy. Everything's green.
No, we're talking about on the northern hemisphere of the Earth. On the southern hemisphere of the Earth, it's fall.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not so bad there, too. Okay. Things are not dead yet.
It's harvest season.
It's harvest season. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like I don't want to say not equidistant, but things are starting to grow, or things are being harvested. Okay, It's not super hot. It's not super cold.
Okay,
so it's a time you're joyful at both these times.
All right. So May 12th it is. It's Gnome Day.
Gnome Day.
Now, do these gnomes want to say something to us as a global gnomes?
They're saying, you just go about your business. Don't worry too much about us.
All right, you heard it here first. Don't worry too much about us. Carry on.
Yeah, carry on. I mean, we will always be here. The gnomes, we will always be here. And if you need us, we will always be here.
Okay. And we didn't talk about the fairies, although we said that we were going to talk about fairies. Do the fairies want to come on and say a few things?
Yeah.
Do the fairies exist with the gnomes, or are they a whole different?
You mean in the same communities?
Yeah.
Not really. They could be neighbors.
They could be neighbors.
Neighbors.
But they're a global community as well.
Oh, yeah.
And are they telepathically connected as well?
You know what? They're more localized than global.
This just seems like in the conversations we've had in the past with the fairies that there's so many different kinds of fairies, like art fairies we talk to, flower fairies. And,
right.
And they come and they go. They're very etherical. They come and they go. And they kind of reconstitute themselves. Like many of the fairies are actually like fairy energies.
Right. Oh, yes. They are more energetic.
Right.
And less
physical. Right.
So they're not. So when I say local, it means that there's not this whole interconnected worldwide network. Mm-hmm. But local meaning sort of like particular region, but they don't have to stay in one spot.
Mm-hmm. We don't really think of fairies that much at this time of year. What's our magical time for fairies?
Magical time for fairies. Oh, they're saying anytime.
Anytime and every time?
Anytime.
So they don't do they have a national holiday? No, international holiday or worldwide? No, because they don't celebrate like that. And there are too many different kinds.
And it's like every day's a holiday for them. That's what they're saying.
All right.
Yeah, every day's a holiday. But they do want to say that they like to join in the festivities around this time of year.
They do.
Because they recognize that winter solstice or Christmas or however you want to call it.
Kwanzaa's or Hanukkah's.
Yeah, it's an important time where people get together and celebrate.
Okay.
And they all want to join in.
All right. And then local fairies, for whoever culture is celebrating at any time, the fairies like to celebrate with them.
Yeah, because they like having a good time.
All right.
They like seeing people happy.
Okay. All right.
Just like the gnomes do.
Very good. So is there anything else that we all want to add or ask the gnomes or the fairies?
Oh, I was kind of wondering. I mean, we humans actually like to travel a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to experience different...
Right. For some of
different
us.
cultures.
Some of us people like
different
to travel.
countries. Yeah. And so, actually, I can't remember where I said it, but so like the indigenous gnomes, the original gnomes of various countries, say North America or Australia, right? You had the indigenous gnomes there, and then you had the colonizer gnomes. But they came to these countries, or like whatever, if you want to call it the New World or whatever. They came because humans were coming to these countries, and gnomes wanted to come along and they wanted to see something new. Okay,
so they like to travel too.
They like to travel too.
They're up for an adventure.
Yes, some of them are.
Some of them are.
Some of them are up for adventure.
Okay, so this goes off on another little tangent then. So when you pack for a trip, should you pack your gnomes along? Pack your gnomes along, or ask your gnomes if,
Well, you know, I mean...
Are there travel helper gnomes?
Even if you didn't ask them, if they wanted to come along, they still would.
Okay.
So they like hide in your luggage or your coat pockets or something.
Alrighty. All right, are we complete? On that note, I'm going to book my next travel ticket and check my pockets to see if something's freeloading on my trip.
Just make sure you bring along snacks for them.
Oh, I'm sure they're snacking on my snacks. I asked for an extra one when the little stewards come along and say, would you like an extra one? Sure.
They particularly like airplanes.
Interesting. All right. Better than boats?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. They just
because it goes faster.
Well, yeah, but on a boat, say it's like a cruise ship, right? With all these amenities you have there now, you could have like a really nice time.
But they still prefer planes.
Yeah, they prefer planes for some reason.
Maybe they're more interested in getting someplace than the journey.
Could be.
Like a lot of us. Sometimes we want to get somewhere rather than base the journey along the way. All right, Diana, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, gnomes.
Thank you, gnomes.
Thank you, fairies.
Learn more about us at realmtorealm.com, and thank you for listening, sharing, and subscribing.